President Trump surprised the world when he said, "I want to buy Greenland." Greenland is the world's largest island. However, about 80% of its land is covered by glaciers, making it virtually impossible to farm or raise livestock. So, why does President Trump want to buy this barren land? And was he really serious? A quick look at Greenland's history shows that the Norse first settled there around the 10th century, and the population declined with the decline of settlement around the 14th century. After the unification of the Danish and Norwegian kingdoms, Greenland became a self-governing territory of Denmark. During World War II, when Denmark came under the control of Nazi Germany, the United States temporarily occupied Greenland for strategic reasons, and the U.S. military base established at that time still exists today. The United States recognizes it as an important strategic base. In 1985, Greenland withdrew from the European Economic Community, and today Greenland's economy is largely based on the fishing industry. Due to the extreme climate, agriculture is almost impossible, and the export of marine products is the main industry. So why is Trump so interested in Greenland? The answer lies in its status as a military and economic stronghold. During World War II, the United States realized its strategic value by performing tasks such as weather observation, monitoring German submarines, and protecting Allied military supplies in Greenland. When the war ended and the Cold War began, Greenland was re-evaluated as a key location for keeping Moscow in check. This is because Greenland lies in the middle of the shortest route that connects North America and Russia in a straight line. Most intercontinental ballistic missiles pass through the Arctic, and Greenland is considered the best base for interception or early detection. In other words, it is a key military base in the Arctic. And another thing is resources. As the glaciers are rapidly melting due to climate change, Greenland is quickly becoming a new hub for securing new shipping routes and resources. This is because it is buried with abundant resources such as iron ore, uranium, oil, and natural gas. Rare earth elements, in particular, are essential to core industries such as semiconductors, electric vehicles, and military equipment. And most are currently monopolized by China, so the U.S. is trying to secure its own supply chain. There are about 1.5 million tons of rare earths in Greenland, and more than 12 mines are currently being explored. It is estimated that about 11% of the total oil and gas reserves in the Arctic are in Greenland. 80% of the land is still covered by permafrost and remains undeveloped. However, as these glaciers melt rapidly due to global warming, the amount of resources that can be developed in the future is likely to increase. As the glaciers melt and the sea route opens, Greenland could become a major logistics hub between North America, Europe, and Russia. Currently, the glacier is so thick that it is difficult to navigate without an icebreaker, and the route is often blocked by weather conditions. However, as technology advances and the glacier disappears due to climate change, the possibility of opening a new sea route in this area is increasing every day. In particular, there are prospects that the shortest sea route from North America to Europe can be realized. If we look at how important Greenland is geographically, there are many reasons why former President Trump might be interested in it. But what I really want to know is this: did Trump really want to buy this country? It is likely that Trump's remarks were not just a coincidence. In a formal press conference, he stated that Greenland is necessary for the United States, and emphasized that military pressure was possible. What is even more surprising is that on January 7th, shortly after his remarks, Trump Jr. actually visited Greenland, met with locals, and held a press conference. At this point, it's hard to see former President Trump's obsession with Greenland as just a coincidence. Some analysts even say that he is likely to maintain his desire for Greenland throughout his time in office. Of course, it is almost impossible to incorporate Greenland into the United States under international law. However, given Trump's style, he will not give up easily. There is speculation that he will continue to look for opportunities and make repeated attempts. President Trump also said, "If Greenland becomes part of the United States, people will become much richer and enjoy tremendous benefits." He even uses the phrase, "Make Greenland great again," a parody of the existing "Make America Great Again," and continues to send out political messages. At the same time, he has also made statements suggesting military intervention. So, is it really possible that the United States will try to intervene militarily in Greenland? But the reality is not so simple. If the US uses force, it will face strong criticism from the international community that it is no different from Russia's invasion. Ultimately, a strategy of strengthening ties with Greenland through economic assistance and persuasion, rather than military pressure, is being discussed as a more realistic and viable option. In addition to making military threats against Greenland, former President Trump has also expanded his interest in strategic locations to other regions. Another region he mentioned was the Panama Canal. This canal is a world-class sea passageway that was completed in 1914 at the initiative of the United States, after a massive construction project that lasted 10 years. And this canal has brought enormous military and economic benefits to the United States. For example, when ships traveled from New York in the eastern United States to San Francisco in the west, they previously had to sail around the southernmost tip of South America. But the Panama Canal allowed them to cut a whopping 8,000 miles off that route. The same goes for the military. The United States has gained significant strategic flexibility by being able to significantly reduce both time and distance when moving the Atlantic Fleet to the Pacific. President Trump mentioned Greenland and the Panama Canal when he talked about strategic locations. But the reaction in Greenland was quite different. The Greenlanders have taken a clear stance. We are neither Danish nor American. There was one interesting change. The symbol of the Danish royal coat of arms has changed. In the previous coat of arms, the polar bear symbolizing Greenland was drawn small and inconspicuous. But in the new coat of arms announced on January 6th, the polar bear is much larger. Many people interpret this as a symbolic response to Trump's pressure. Even among the Greenlandic population, there have been constant calls for independence from Denmark. One of the reasons for this is the passive development policy of the Danish government. In 2018, the Greenlandic government tried to attract Chinese capital to open an air route between Europe and the United States. However, the US government strongly opposed the plan, and the Danish government itself canceled the plan. This incident had political repercussions and eventually led to the dissolution of the Greenlandic parliament, causing a major disruption in domestic politics. Another reason for the demand for independence is the issue of discrimination against the Inuit. The indigenous Arctic Inuit make up about 90% of Greenland's total population. In the 1960s and 1970s, the Danish government forced sterilization on about half of the Inuit women in Greenland after the birth rate of Inuit women increased. More than 4,000 women are known to have been affected. This shocking incident was discovered late, and both Denmark and Greenland have been conducting joint investigations for the past 3 years. This historical pain, discrimination, and dissatisfaction with the Danish government's passive attitude towards development have led to calls for independence. In fact, Greenland has been preparing for independence for a long time. In 2009, the Autonomy Act was passed, transferring most powers from Denmark except for diplomacy and national defense, and making it legally possible to declare independence. According to a poll, 60–70% of the population want independence, and even Denmark admits that independence will come one day. But the real problem remains the economy. Greenland depends on subsidies from Denmark for almost half of its budget, and 20–25% of its GDP comes from these subsidies. But there is hope. Greenland has abundant natural resources that have yet to be fully exploited. When resource development begins in earnest, the per capita national income is expected to reach 2 to 3 times the current level. Once the economic base has been secured to some extent, political independence will no longer be a pipe dream. Greenland now stands on a complex stage where geopolitics, resources, and historical wounds are intertwined. Trump's remark about buying Greenland is not only a strange event, but also a symbol of how much the region has grown in military and economic importance. The only question that remains is this: can Greenland determine its own future? Ultimately, all of these questions are likely to be largely determined by the Greenlandic parliamentary elections to be held in April this year.